Jake Carter, an ordinary soul stationed on Valerie Prime, a humble outer rim space station, lived a simple life as a mechanic, mending air vents, repairing fractured panels, and occasionally assisting alien engineers bewildered by human tools. He cherished his tranquil routine: eat, work, sleep, repeat. Yet today, everything shifted. Jake, fresh from a peculiar lunch of alien soup, a concoction reminiscent of scorched rubber yet palatable after acclimatization at the station's food hub, wiped his mouth, rose, and extended his limbs. The corridor behind him remained hushed, save for the subtle resonance of the overhead energy lights. Then he noticed her, an ethereal figure with luminous skin that seemed to ripple like polished silver blue silk, her gaze radiating a soft, celestial glow. She was adorned in flowing garments that billowed around her like a spectral fog. Others in the passage yielded to her presence. Jake hadn't a clue to her identity. Perhaps an envoy from one of the many diplomatic species that frequented the station, he mused. She advanced towards the portal ahead, and without a second thought, Jake rushed to activate the panel, holding the portal ajar. A mere gesture of courtesy, a deeply ingrained reflex from his earthly upbringing. Yet she froze, her radiant eyes dilating in utter disbelief. She fixated on him, an expression of stunned surprise replacing any anger or confusion. Jake offered a subtle, reassuring smile, gesturing for her to proceed. Unwavering, she remained still, her cheeks morphing from a silvery hue to a delicate, luminous lavender. Her breath quickened, and she lowered her gaze before meeting his again. In a hushed tone, she murmured something unintelligible in her native tongue, too rapid for the translator to decipher. Without another utterance, she briskly crossed the threshold, her face still aglow, vanishing into the corridor. Jake lingered there, momentarily taken aback. "Bizarre," he murmured, "probably just a cultural quirk." He resumed his duties, dismissing it until later that night, as Jake relaxed in his quarters, engrossed in a cheesy Earth sitcom on his datapad. A forceful rapping echoed through the room. 3 distinct, sharp blows. He sat up, muttering, "Who even bothers knocking these days?" Rising, he watched as the door hissed open, revealing 3 imposing alien guards, clad in towering armor and radiating unwavering seriousness. The apparent leader fixed him with a gaze, stating, "Human Jake Carter?" "Yeah, that's me," Jake responded, thoroughly bewildered. "You are formally commanded to appear before the Zanari Royal Court. You will accompany us immediately." Jake's brow furrowed in disbelief. "Misunderstanding. I believe you've mistaken me." The guard's tone chilled. "You assisted Princess Zur at the bonding gate, thus activating the bond." Jake's heart leaped. "Hold on. Bonding gate? Princess? What's happening?" Ignoring him, the guard seized him. "Hey, I was simply courteous," Jake protested, dragged down the hall. Crew members watched, murmuring, but none intervened. Panic surged. "Princess? Bonding gate? What have I done?" They forced him through an exclusive portal, unfamiliar to him. He ventured into the station's elite alien zone, soon finding himself in a majestic hall. Luminous banners, crystalline lights, and a central platform dominated the scene. There stood Zyra, the alien girl, now in stunning robes, radiating beauty and nervousness, her fingers subtly trembling. Her eyes filled with raw emotion, met his. "You arrived," she whispered. Jake, his voice raspy, replied, "I was compelled to." A colossal alien in ornate gold robes emerged from behind her. Voice boomed, "I am Emperor Varnex, Princess Zyra's sire. Human, by starting the bonding ritual, you've deeply esteemed her." Jake stammered, No, you misunderstand. I merely opened the portal." The Emperor's gaze intensified. In Zanari custom, ushering a female through the sacred gateway signifies a profound pledge. By holding the door, you proclaimed yourself her destined partner. Jake recoiled. It was an error, a simple cultural faux pas. Zyra, crestfallen, whispered, "You didn't mean it?" Jake hesitated, then confessed, "I was unaware. On Earth, it's common courtesy." The chamber fell deathly silent. Then the Emperor's voice boomed, "Reject the union, and the princess will be exiled. Her disgrace will be notorious, her lineage tainted." Jake's blood ran cold, his heart hammered. This wasn't a jest, not a figment of his imagination. A single act of kindness had spiraled into a full-blown political catastrophe. He glanced at Zer, not enraged, but terrified. Her voice, a mere breath, confessed, "I dreaded a forced arrangement, but I secretly wished. Perhaps you noticed me." Utterly bewildered, Jake grasped one undeniable truth. This was no longer just on decorum. This concerned prestige, jurisprudence, and a damsel involuntarily embroiled. "Might I contemplate?" Jake inquired. The Emperor offered a curt assent. By moonrise, then a resolution must be reached. Escorted to a guarded suite, Jake slumped onto the bed, cradling his head. "One door," he mumbled. "One idiotic portal." As Valari Prime's moon ascended, Jake gazed at the cosmos, anticipating a life-altering dawn. Sleep eluded him. The opulent guest room felt like a gilded cage. A gentle chromatic orb pulsed above, mirroring the moon's phases, yet offered no solace. Perched on the bed's edge, elbows braced on his knees, he fixated on the floor. Silent sentinels stood watch beyond his door, while within his mind, turmoil reigned. "This defies reality," he murmured, recalling the invitation that thrust him into this royal bonding ritual. He was incredulous, yet Zer's expression resonated deeper. Her eyes reflected conviction, transcending mere adherence to tribal customs. She genuinely believed. Her lingering words, "I hoped maybe you saw me," haunted him. Jake remained uncertain of what he perceived, but this reality starkly contrasted his expectations. A delicate, measured knock preceded the gradual opening of the door, and Zyra entered. Unaccompanied by guards or her father, she stood alone. Jake swiftly rose. "Hey, princess." "Just call me Zer," she whispered, her hands clasped demurely. Jake offered a slow nod. "Okay, Zer." Silence hung in the air. Zer's gaze swept the room before she settled across from him. "You're unfamiliar with our ways," she began, "which isn't your doing." Jake leaned back, striving for composure. "Yeah, Earth's different. Holding a door open is simply good manners where I'm from. Nothing more. I get it now." Sierra spoke. "I perused your cultural primer this morning. I hesitated to accept it, but I saw it myself." Jake exhaled deeply. "So, can you enlighten me?" Dad confessed it was a blunder. Zer glanced down, her fingers fidgeting with her robe's hem. "I could, but it won't alter the decree." she stated. Once a pact is publicly forged, honor dictates. Even the Emperor can't nullify it without disgrace. Disgrace for whom? Jake probed. Zur finally met his gaze. Jake recoiled. This is madness. Zur rose, drifting to the luminous window, gazing at the cosmos. Her voice, a gentle whisper, revealed, I've been betrothed thrice. Jake stammered. What? All arranged, all shattered. My father conceals it, but the court recalls. If this connection fractures, I'll be deemed impure, forbidden from ever guiding my people. Jake rose, sensing the world tilt beneath him. This wasn't my choice, he declared. I seek not to shatter your existence, yet I never consented to be anyone's destined partner either. Zer concurred. Precisely why I'm here. I've conceived a scheme. Jake's gaze narrowed. What manner of scheme? Zer pivoted, a brilliant spark igniting in her eyes, eclipsing the fear with fierce determination. We fabricate it, she declared. Jake blinked, perplexed. We feign a bond, merely for a handful of days. Sufficient time for the Emperor to advance his other affairs. Subsequently, we discreetly dissolve the bond. I shall inform him that I've released you, deeming you unsuitable. Jake's brow furrowed in a frown. Won't that still tarnish your reputation? Zur offered a faint smile. Not if it appears to be my deliberate decision. Jake began to pace the chamber. This is audacious. You desire me to impersonate your mate, to project an image of togetherness solely in the public sphere? Zyra clarified. Absolutely no physical intimacy. Genuine connection transcends mere pleasantries and facades. Jake scrutinized her. You've meticulously planned this, haven't you? She inclined her head slightly. Survival within the political arena has been ingrained in me since childhood. It was never a choice. Jake sighed, raking a hand over his face. All right, but if I'm committing to this, I require a tangible incentive. Zur appeared taken aback. And what would that be? Jake gestured toward the viewport. My station contract expires in a quarter of a year. I've been diligently saving for a modest vessel. Perhaps your royal prerogative could expedite that process. Zer's expression softened into a knowing smile. Consider it done. Jake extended his hand. She hesitated momentarily, then clasped it firmly. A binding accord, she affirmed. By dawn, whispers had amplified. Princess Zer's human consort was the station's sensation. Alien nobles murmured, their gazes, a mix of awe and disdain, fixed on Jake. Beside Zer, he entered the grand hall. She was composed, head held high, yet Jake sensed her subtle tremor as her hand hovered near his arm. The Emperor, enthroned, inquired, Has all been finalized? Zur affirmed, Indeed, Father. Our union is legitimate, adhering to the passage rite. Managed a weak smile and offered a courteous nod. The courtroom applauded with restraint. Some smiled subtly, many scowled. Jake noticed an alien noble murmuring to his companion, eyes blazing with animosity. Zyra confided softly, That's Lord Yakel. He was determined to bond me to his heir. Jake grumbled, Fantastic, so I've attracted adversaries now. They navigated the ceremony by a thread, but an unforeseen event unfolded that night. Jake returned to his chambers to discover a diminutive, holographic message. He activated it, and Zir's recorded image materialized. Thank you for the charade. I cannot foresee the consequences, Yet today you did more than assist my survival. You bestowed upon me a choice." Jake remained, cradling the device, a peculiar warmth enveloping him. He hadn't solicited this situation, nor orchestrated any of it, yet his grip on reality loosened. Something in Zyra's gaze, an unsaid truth lingering beneath her polished tone, stirred within him, prompted him to speculate if this fabricated connection could evolve into something profound. Yet just as he finalized the message, the room's lights pulsed ominously. An alert signal flashed. Unauthorized transmission flagged. Jake's pulse quickened. Was he under surveillance? He approached the panel and activated it. Abruptly, a concealed file materialized, displaying the Cenari Law Codex, Article 42. Once a bond is publicly ratified by royal edict, its dissolution is irrevocably forbidden. Jake was stunned. Utterly bewildered, Jake remained paralyzed before the screen. The luminous extraterrestrial characters remained constant. The translation unchanged. Remained unchanged. Cenari Law Code, Section 42. Once a bond is publicly ratified by royal decree, its dissolution is forbidden. His fists clenched. His heart hammered a frantic rhythm. "This wasn't the agreement," he breathed, rising abruptly. He traversed the room, then slumped back down, his thoughts spiraling. Zer swore it was fleeting, a readily severed tie. This law, if absolute, signified inescapable permanence. Jake accessed the message log, desperate to pinpoint the file's source. The sender, untraceable. Encrypted, sender unknown, truth desired. "Why now?" Jake questioned, a sudden chill prickling his skin. Was Zer deceptive or genuinely unaware? The door chimed, disrupting his thoughts. Royal escort imminent. Zer entered, transformed, dark tunic, understated, almost concealed. "Ready?" she inquired. Averting his gaze, Jake braced himself. Her eyes flickered to the guards before returning to him. "My father requires our presence at a grand banquet with the court tonight." Jake's brow furrowed. "Is it unavoidable then?" Zyra offered a weary nod. "Our absence would incite suspicion. Whispers already circulate, questioning the validity of our bond." Jake advanced. "Then disclose the truth. Is there an escape from this bond, or not?" Zyra tensed. "What are you implying?" Jake presented the screen. Her eyes widened as she scanned the statute. Her lips parted slightly. "Section 42. You were aware?" Jake pressed, his tone sharp. "No," she murmured. "Damn, I never anticipated this. I genuinely believed we could feign affection long enough for this charade to dissolve discreetly. But if this law is truly implemented..." Jake's voice dropped. "I'm inextricably bound to you, Zyra, for eternity." Zyra appeared wounded, yet she acquiesced with a nod. "Unless the Emperor himself revokes the edict, and he simply won't." Jake slumped back down, massaging his forehead. "My intentions were purely to assist you," he confessed. "Now, ironically, I'm being forced into a royal union with a complete stranger." Zyra remained hushed. She uttered softly, "I was equally unconsenting, Jake." Pivoting towards the exit, she halted at the threshold. "A different solution I shall uncover," she declared. "I refuse to ensnare you." The gala unfolded within an immense, crystal-domed chamber. Myriads of aristocrats populated the space. Towering extraterrestrials adorned in vibrant garments, radiant plumes, and peculiar adornments. Platters drifted weightlessly, pirouetting gently, emanating vapor and luminescence. Jake strode in alongside Zyra, who advanced with elegance, head elevated, gaze intent. Yet Jake perceived her unease. Her countenance betrayed no joy, no serenity. As they settled at the head table, a mere tier beneath the Emperor, Jake felt the stares intensify. The murmurs ignited anew upon his seating. "That's the human. He's out of place." "She could have selected more wisely," Zyr cautioned, leaning in. "Don't rise to it. They're baiting you." Jake plastered on a strained smile, offering a courteous nod to the assembled dignitaries, fighting the urge to flee. A venerable alien dignitary, distinguished by crimson flesh and obsidian eyes, advanced. "Human," he announced, his voice amplified, "enlighten us. How do your kind ready yourselves for a royal mating ritual? We're intrigued if ablutions precede or follow the act." A cacophony of derisive laughter swelled around them. Jake said, his voice even, "Here on Earth, we generally allow individuals to make their own choices, ensuring nobody is compelled into a relationship lacking genuine affection." A hush fell over the room as Zyra blinked, clearly taken aback. The nobleman visibly recoiled, displaying his displeasure. Emperor Varnax intervened, raising a hand. "Sufficient. Let the feast commence." As the initial notes of music filled the air, Jake leaned towards Zyra. "This is an utter spectacle," she muttered back. "Welcome to my everyday existence." Post-banquet, Jake was guided to a secluded balcony alongside Zyr. The celestial bodies shimmered with amplified brilliance, the planet beneath rotating in hushed tranquility. Zyr gently touched the railing. "Thank you for your earlier words," she murmured. Jake crossed his arms. "I voiced them not for their benefit, but for yours." She gazed at him, her eyes reflecting sorrow intertwined with a hint of respect, perhaps. "Jake," she whispered, "I've unearthed something extraordinary." Presenting a data chip, she extended it to him. "This unveils an archaic iteration of the law, permitting the dissolution of the bond, subject to imperial approval via a trial." Jake arched an eyebrow. "A trial?" Zyra confirmed with a nod. "Indeed, a test. Have to demonstrate you're unsuitable, that you're reprehensible, that you're undeserving of the princess." Jake grinned. That shouldn't present too much difficulty. Zyr remained impassive. "Precisely because the trial is orchestrated to debase you. Should you fail, the bond intensifies, becoming a spectacle." Jake cradled the chip, contemplative. "So my options are binary," he stated. "Remain bound or suffer public annihilation." Zyr averted her gaze. "My intention was never to inflict harm." Jake observed her, perceiving not a calculating royal, but someone ensnared by obligation, striving to project strength. "I'll undertake the trial," he affirmed. In the end, Zyr whirled around. "Absolutely not. It's perilous." Jake smirked. "Isn't being your mate equally so?" Her gaze lingered, profound. "What's your real motivation?" she pressed. Jake inhaled deeply. "Because everyone warrants autonomy." Zyr's eyes glistened, shedding her regal facade, revealing a vulnerability that begged for rescue. Later that night, alone in his dark chamber, Jake murmured, "One door, now a trial to demonstrate I'm no prince." Meanwhile, deep within the palace, a silent figure monitored a screen, unseen. Crimson-skinned noble, a sinister smile crept across his face. "Let the mortal dare," he hissed. "The princess will submit, willingly or otherwise." Jake's footsteps resonated through the pristine hall as the royal sentinels escorted him into the judgment chamber. Unlike the festive banquet hall or the opulent throne room, this sanctuary was hushed, frigid, and embraced by towering, age-old pillars that vanished into the gloom. A pervasive scent of antiquity, of dust and conflict, permeated the air. This was where destinies were decided. Serafina was forbidden from entering. Such was the decree. She had no choice but to await his return in hushed anticipation. Jake remained composed amidst a silent audience. Xeno's dignitaries scrutinized his every move. Emperor Varnex loomed above on a black crystal throne. "Commence," the Emperor commanded. A gold-skinned official unfurled a radiant scroll. Jake Carter, Earth citizen, bound by Zenari law to Princess Zyra, must now demonstrate his unworthiness. Jake nodded, outwardly serene, inwardly. His blood roared in his ears. "If you're deemed unworthy," the official boomed, "the pact shatters. But fail, and your name is eternally etched into Varnex's halls, trapped forever." Jake gulped, the pressure immense. Let the Veritas trials commence. First, the memory mirror. A vast glass pane ascended, shimmering like liquid, showcasing Jake's past, childhood, schoolyard brawls, blunders, moments of cowardice. The mirror's frigid feminine voice echoed. "You deceived your instructor. You pilfered sustenance during Earth's rationing year. You abandoned your brother amidst the great blackout." Jake recoiled, the buried agony resurfacing. He advanced. "Indeed, I did those things, yet I evolved. I transformed." The mirror shimmered. Truth validated. Nobles murmured amongst themselves. Second trial, the test of might. Jake was escorted to a combat arena where a colossal alien stood, 8 feet tall, adorned with spiked limbs and 4 eyes. The announcer boomed, "Lord Yakel presents his heir, Karnax, as your adversary." Jake muttered a curse, realizing this was far more than just a challenge. Driven by raw strength, Karax lunged ferociously. Jake narrowly dodged the savage attack. This wasn't a contest of brute force, but survival. Jake, agile and cunning, retaliated. A blinding spray of sand, followed by a precise strike with a shock staff to Karax's knee. The beast crashed down, roaring in agony. Jake, catching his breath, had merely survived. Despite the noble's displeasure, the announcer boomed. "Trial complete. He has passed the 3rd test, the heart's choice." Now Jake found himself in a pitch-black chamber. A single ray illuminated. 2 paths materialized. A voice echoed, "Beyond one lies liberation. Beyond the other, a princess, hurt and isolated. Decide your destiny." Jake paused, drawn to the left door. Freedom beckoned. Yet Zyra's image consumed him. Her voice, her vulnerable touch. He couldn't forsake her. Turning, he opened the opposite door. No wounds, no Zyra. Only a figure, arms crossed. "You chose loyalty," he stated softly. Jake affirmed, "She's not just royalty. She's human." The Emperor declared, "The trial concludes. This mortal," he hesitated, "has exhibited profound honor." A collective gasp swept through the hall. Jake stammered, "Hold on, that's not what I envisioned." The Emperor scrutinized him intensely. "You have triumphed. The bond is irreversible. The laws are immutable. Jake advanced, incensed. That's unjust. I didn't strive to demonstrate worthiness. My aim was to liberate her. The Emperor's tone intensified. Freedom is not a topic for discussion within my court. Jake's fists tightened. Then I shall voice it beyond these walls. He pivoted and departed the chamber with vehemence. Zir waited anxiously in the grand marble corridor, hands clasped tightly. When Jake materialized, she surged forward. Are you unharmed? Jake pressed on. We must confer immediately. They secured themselves in a secluded chamber. Jake confronted her. You omitted a critical detail. The trial was manipulated. Zir's brow furrowed. Explain yourself. Jake began pacing. I aced every challenge, yet the Emperor claims I cannot be freed. Now that I've demonstrated exceptional integrity. Zir's visage crumbled. That signifies the unbreakable bond is irrevocably forged. Jake solemnly affirmed, he never intended to relinquish me. This charade was merely a facade. Zir bowed her head, filled with remorse. Forgive me. I ought to have realized he harbors deep mistrust for those beyond our fold. He always has. Jake, his gaze fixed on her, declared, Then I must orchestrate a move he'd never anticipate. She looked up, questioning. I must depart, not with sanction, but with unwavering resolve. Zir's eyes widened. You intend to abscond from the royal court. Jake offered a weary, shadowed smile. I've endured far more perilous realms. At least here, sunlight streams through the windows. Yet before words could continue to flow, the ominous crack of splintering wood punctuated the air. The door was forcefully breached as two sentinels barged inside. Zyra immediately stepped into the path to shield Jake. What's this? The lead guard brandished a command tablet. By decree of Lord Yakil, the human is to be apprehended on suspicion of sedition. Zir's eyes blazed. You hold no authority here. My father never sanctioned this. The guard smirked. Your father granted Yakil far more influence than you realize. Jake surged forward. If you crave a battle, bring it on. But Zir interjected, raising a hand. No, she declared, her voice laced with defiance. Let them attempt to seize you. I double dare them. Abruptly, the atmosphere vibrated as a clandestine energy barrier materialized behind her. Jake discerned she'd engaged a security lockdown. The guard surged forward, only to be contained beyond the shimmering field. Zyra faced Jake, her voice a hushed promise. You never run solo. She breathed. We're seeing this through, together. Jake gazed at her, questioning if their fabricated connection held true substance. The palace echoed with unnerving silence. Jake and Zyra remained in the secured chamber, the guards thwarted outside the luminous shield Zyra had conjured. However, they both understood their respite was fleeting, moments perhaps before reinforcements arrived. If apprehended, their fates were sealed. Jake scanned the control panel. We've got a sliver of opportunity, he asserted. A subterranean passage winds beneath the archives, a maintenance conduit. Should we attain it, egress from the palace is viable. Zyra concurred with a nod. It surfaces amidst the ancient city vestiges, nestled under the spaceport. A wry smile touched Jake's lips. Naturally. Every royal palace boasts clandestine tunnels, wouldn't you know? A fleeting smile graced her features. Incredulous, aren't you? They quickened their pace. Zyra guiding him through concealed corridors and service routes. Each exposure to open space triggered Jake's awareness of prying eyes, a burgeoning distrust lurking in every recess. They arrived at the archives, an imposing domed sanctuary brimming. Amidst the aura of illuminated tomes and memory crystals, a scent of aged artifacts and dormant power lingered. Jake edged towards the rear wall, drawing aside a dense curtain, revealing a secured panel. "Give me 30 seconds, he stated, retrieving a specialized instrument from his boot. Let's hope Zenari Tech still loathes haphazard wiring. Zyra maintained a vigil nearby, her gaze fixed on the corridor. "I'm astounded I'm going through with this," she murmured. "Are you certain about this?" Jake inquired, his hand still working. Zyra's gaze met his. "I had ample opportunities to withdraw," she replied, "yet I chose to remain." Jake's hands momentarily faltered, then clicked as the panel disengaged. Ventured into the tunnel, the passage was shrouded in darkness and constricted, with pipes snaking across the ceiling. The floor thrummed subtly with the engines overhead as their footfalls reverberated behind. Zer moved onward, her light globe illuminating the path beside her shoulder. Jake trailed closely, his mind racing. He'd attempted to feign partnership, then sought liberation through legal means, and now he found himself fleeing alongside the princess. "Do you have faith in me?" Jake inquired, his voice barely a whisper. Sierra continued her pace without pause. "The jury's still out." Jake offered a wry chuckle. "Fair enough." At the tunnels, they materialized into the ravaged lower city, a desolate realm of shattered spires, corroded automatons, and decaying ramparts. Above, the sky churned with violet haze, untouched by the palace's glow. Jake surveyed the scene. "It's a spectral metropolis," Zyra murmured, "the former capital before the Empire's ascent. Now utterly forsaken." "Ideal sanctuary," Jake responded, but a rustling sound cut him off. Half a dozen armed silhouettes materialized from the ruins. Clad in obsidian armor highlighted by crimson visors, these were Yakel's elite guards. Jake whispered, "This guy truly wants me gone." The lead soldier brandished his weapon. "Surrender immediately. The human is now a ward of the crown." Zer confronted them. "He is no one's property." The soldier leveled his rifle. "Then you will both be neutralized." Jake instinctively reached for his belt, finding only a small stunner. But Zer raised her hands, and arcane symbols ignited on her palms. An explosive wave of raw energy erupted from her, an azure torrent that sent the soldiers flying. Jake stammered, utterly baffled. "What in the world was that?" Zer appeared equally astonished. "I was unaware of possessing such capabilities." Jake fixated on her radiant hands. "Remind me to remain on your good graces." They sprinted further into the ruins. Jake's lungs felt like they were ablaze. "Reinforcements are inevitable. This flight is unsustainable." Syra halted by an antiquated tower, bracing herself against the wall. "We possess a solitary alternative." Jake questioned her intent. She scrutinized him intently. "Challenge. A duel with my father. A public summons obligates his acceptance, dictated by ancient law. No armies, no nobles, just two champions." Jake chuckled wryly. "Permit me to surmise, I—" "Embrace the challenge," Syra murmured, a subtle nod affirming Jake's role as the prime contender. "I shall dub you my chosen champion." Jake paced. "And if victory is mine, the pact dissolves, all accusations erased, granting you freedom?" Zyra's gaze lowered. Should you falter, royalty claims you eternally, with no recourse. Silence descended as Jake recalled his past life on Earth, his comrades, the serenity he once possessed. He then looked at Zur, weary, frightened yet valiant, and inquired, "Do you truly believe in my chances of prevailing?" Zur locked eyes with him. "I've witnessed your essence, not merely robust, but uniquely, profoundly human, a trait that unnerves them more than sheer power." A slow grin spread across Jake's face. "Then let us unleash a wave of terror upon them." The next day, the gauntlet was thrown. The court reconvened in the palace's grand arena. Nobles adorned crystalline balconies, while the emperor observed from above, his countenance inscrutable. Zur declared with unwavering resolve, "I've chosen Jake Carter as my champion. I stand behind his fight." A cacophony erupted. Disbelief and fury intermingled. Lord Yakel introduced General Vexen, his own formidable warrior, the Empire's most dreaded, a towering cyborg. Jake locked eyes with him. "This is going to be interesting." "Are you serious?" Zur murmured. "Employ your intellect, not just your brute force." The duel commenced. Vexen's movements were blindingly fast, his blades a whirlwind, his footsteps soundless. Jake evaded, tumbled, and retaliated using anything within reach: dust, gravel, fractured rocks. He didn't compete with power. He rivaled with agility and ingenuity. The audience audibly gasped as Jake slipped beneath Vexen's legs, striking a vulnerable joint with his elbow. Sparks erupted. Vexen roared in frustration, hurling Jake across the arena. Blood inundated Jake's mouth, his chest blazed, bones screamed in agony. Yet he struggled to his feet. He glanced at Zyra. She remained stoic, but her eyes conveyed everything. Persevere. Vexen advanced. Summoning his last reserves, Jake stooped, seized the relic, and plunged it deep into Vexen's core. A deafening crack reverberated as the machine shuddered, then crumbled. Absolute silence yielded to roaring cheers, screams, and the astonishment of nobles. Jake slumped to his knees, victorious, caught by Zur. The Emperor rose slowly. "The trial concludes," he declared. "The human has valiantly secured his liberation." Exhausted, bleeding, and trembling, Jake stood gasping for air, Zyra's grip firm on his arm. "I ought to be overjoyed," she murmured. "You're finally liberated." Jake gazed at her, his voice soft. "Then why does this feel like the most agonizing moment?" Silence enveloped the arena once more. Jake remained, wounded yet alive, in the center of the space. Behind him lay the ravaged form of General Vexen, sparks sputtering from his destroyed core. Crimson streamed down Jake's arm, but his unwavering gaze was fixed on Zyra. She stood motionless, mere feet away. Murmurs rippled through the assembled nobles. Some were spellbound, others furious, and many simply bewildered. Never before had a human dared to defy the royal court. Emperor Varn ascended from his throne, his resonant voice reverberating through the palace's crystalline structures. "The human has battled valiantly and endured, demonstrating exceptional valor, resilience, and intellect. The pact is now dissolved as stipulated." A wave of liberation washed over Jake as the oppressive burden he'd carried for days evaporated. He was unshackled, no longer bound by an alien connection, alien laws, or veiled menaces. Victory was his. But turning towards Zyra, he saw not jubilation, but a profound emotion beyond joy. Not just pain, a profound sense of loss. She retreated from the revelers, wordlessly making her way back to the palace. No farewells, no utterances. Jake remained rooted, watching her departure, and inexplicably, it stung far worse than his physical injuries. As night deepened, tranquility descended upon the palace. The festivities had concluded. The majority of nobles had retreated to their sky chambers. The banners were dismantled, and the arena cleansed. Jake found himself solitary in the garden, behind the guest quarters, gazing at the stars, uncertain of his next chapter. He was liberated, possessing the freedom to depart the station, could reclaim Earth, begin anew, yet a deep unease lingered, an unfinished chapter. He retrieved the bond token from his pocket, the crystal Zyra gifted during their charade of companionship. It still radiated a subtle warmth. "Why this persistence?" he questioned, voice barely audible. "You were meant to discard it." Jake spun around. Zyra materialized from the shadows by the tree, arms folded, her tone hushed. He rose. "I sensed your approach. I desired solitude," she confessed. Silence hung heavy. Jake presented the crystal. "I presumed this held no significance now." "It doesn't," she conceded. "In the eyes of the law." Yet Zur advanced, her gaze weary, her tone devoid of regal power, pure sincerity alone. "But to me, it resonates still." Jake remained silent, allowing her to proceed. "You possessed ample opportunities to depart," Zyra continued. "Countless instances presented themselves, every justification imaginable. I offered you avenues of escape. I personally attempted to liberate you. And yet, you persevered, championed my cause, endangered your very existence." Jake offered a weak smile. "You practically vaporized half an army for me. I'd say we're square." Zyra didn't reciprocate, whispering instead, "Then why does this still feel like a defeat?" Jake inhaled slowly. "Perhaps because deep down, we both yearned for this to be genuine, yet we're paralyzed by fear to admit it." Her gaze snapped up, and Jake advanced. "I entered this as a complete outsider, just some guy who stumbled through a doorway," he confessed. "But the more I've come to know you, the more I've understood that my feelings aren't forced anymore." Zyra's lips parted slightly, but she remained silent. Jake softly took her hand. "I don't desire to be your mate because of some doorway, some archaic law, or some trial by fire. I want to be. I'm with you by deliberate choice, a choice I hope you'll embrace as well." Zyra gently withdrew her hand, gazing at the celestial canvas before turning to him. "Do you truly grasp the implications of choice for someone in my position?" she questioned. "Choosing you signifies a rebellion against the court, a defiance of centuries-old royal decrees, and a direct challenge to my own father's authority." Jake acknowledged with a nod. "I crave not a throne, but you alone." Zyr's voice faltered, and Jake replied softly with a hint of melancholy. "Should you decline, I shall depart without resentment or sorrow, bearing only cherished memories." She gazed upon him, wordlessly turned, and receded into the distance once more. As hours drifted by, Jake prepared his belongings. His transport arrived at dawn. Contract finalized, reputation restored, he journeyed homeward. He sat silently on the edge of the bed, fixated on the crystal bond token nestled in his palm. He considered discarding it, even shattering it, yet simply hesitated, held it tight. A gentle tap echoed. Jake arose. The portal eased ajar. It unveiled Zer, her countenance composed, yet her eyes bore crimson shades. She traversed inwards, cast it about, then uttered one solitary term, remain. Jake quivered. What Zer advanced, and I pondered it endlessly, regarding my obligation, my progenitor, my brethren. Yet I grasped not holds worth, should I forfeit myself. Jake remained statuesque. Zer's digits quivered. I covet no reign should I undertake it. Lonesome. I desire no coronet, should it entail existence, devoid. Sensation. Jake's throat constrained. Zer murmured, I elect you. Jake, no decree, no falsehoods merely. Me, he stepped forward silently, embracing her tightly. She yielded, dissolving into his embrace as if it were her rightful place. He murmured, I'll linger as long as you desire. She receded slightly, a genuine smile gracing her face, the first in days. Still not cooking, she whispered. Jake chuckled. Perfect. I incinerate everything anyway. Outside, the cosmos swirled as the moon ascended. Deep within the palace, Emperor Varnex stood solitary, gazing at the heavens. Lord Yakel entered. You permitted the bond to endure? Yakel inquired. Didn't the Emperor turn him down? No, came the reply. He's merely human. The Emperor's voice echoed. He's far more than that. He stirred a forgotten freedom in my daughter. 3 days on, the palace transformed from a cage. Jake stood on the open balcony, wind whispering through his hair, a double moonlit sky behind. The Zenari capital twinkled below, a constellation of fallen stars. He remained, not from constraint, but deliberate choice. He chose to stay, and this. Time warped behind him as the towering crystal doors swung open, and Zyra emerged. Shedding her ceremonial robes, she now donned a practical travel cloak, her cascading hair pulled back, her eyes serene yet radiant. They await, she stated. Jake pivoted, a smile playing on his lips. Absolutely certain you desire to proceed with this, Zyra affirmed with a nod. If we abstain, another will seize our voice, and I've endured enough of such subjugation. With newfound resolve, Jake advanced, clasping her hand. Let's confront this united. They traversed the palace halls, now unburdened by guards, their pretense shed. Entering the majestic hall, the council awaited. Nobles from every district positioned on elevated platforms. Emperor Varnik, hands clasped, an inscrutable mask on his face, presided. Murmurs rippled through the air as Jake and Zer, hand in hand, approached the center. The Emperor gestured for silence. Zer stepped forward. I stand before you not as royalty, but as a Zenari citizen, bearing a plea. Varnik arched an eyebrow. Proceed, Zyra. She declared, revoke the archaic law. Let the chains of the past be reforged. Let genuine connection, not mere custom, dictate our bonds. Murmurs erupted. A noble bellowed, this edict is inviolable. Another spat. You forsake your heritage for a human? Jake advanced, resolute. She discards nothing. She's forging a future. The council chamber hummed with fervent debate. Varn rose deliberately, a pregnant silence preceding his words. Then his voice resonated. Let them articulate their reality, and for once, let us lend an ear, not as sovereigns, but as fellow beings. The assembly stretched on for hours, each aristocrat interrogating, contesting their motivations, fiercely defending tradition. Yet Jake and Zyra remained steadfast, composed, and unified. Jake recounted tales of Earth, of humanity's past of enslavement, and their eventual embrace of progress, emphasizing that true power emanates from liberation, not coercion. Zyra shared poignant memories of her youth, of choices imposed upon her, of the anxieties concealed beneath opulence. And Gold, concluding with, "Love coerced isn't love, it's mere obligation, and heartless obligation erodes us from the inside." Silence gripped the council. The Emperor, gazing first at his daughter, then at Jake, declared, "So it shall be." With a raised hand, he commanded the law's revision. Henceforth, the passage bond would necessitate mutual consent. Never again would a doorway imprison a soul. The news surged through the empire, igniting both fury and elation. A profound shift had occurred, altering something intrinsic and fundamental. Powerful, the populace perceived the princess anew, no longer as a figure detached from them, but intrinsically connected. And Jake, the human, evolved into an emblem, not of conflict or defiance, but of profound comprehension. Subsequently, Jake lingered before the ancient door, the very threshold of his transformative journey. Though the portal remained unaltered, his world had been irrevocably reshaped. Zer materialized beside him, bearing twin travel packs. "Undeterred about this expedition?" she inquired. Jake flashed a confident grin. "Do you truly believe I battled a mech warrior and shattered a millennium-old decree merely to succumb to trepidation now?" Cyrus quipped with amusement. "We're venturing to Earth. That's reason enough to be resolute. Is far more chilling than the Palace Council." Jake chuckled. "Then stay exceptionally close." They walked together to the ship, shoulder to shoulder, not bound by law, nor compelled by duty, but united by choice. As their vessel soared beyond the station, a solitary figure observed them from a distant tower. Lord Yakel's expression remained serene, enigmatic. Behind him, a junior noble voiced, "They overturned the law. He disgraced us." Yakel calmly acknowledged, "Indeed." "What actions should we now take?" Yakel turned, observed them intently, analyzed their every move. Humans are perilous in ways we barely comprehend. Never imagined he'd gaze out the window once more, yet essential to revisit. Zyra nestled her head on Jake's shoulder. "Do you ever dwell on that fateful day?" she inquired. Jake chuckled. "The doorway? Constantly. It seemed so elementary." Jake agreed. The most unassuming things often prove to be. Zyra's eyelids lowered, but you unleashed the universe as starlight cascaded before them, their vessel hurtling into uncharted galaxies. Jake murmured, "I once braced a seemingly insignificant door, only to discover a vast, boundless world beyond it."